No one would call worrying a hobby, but it's definitely an activity. An invisible activity, but something we do nonetheless. It is hard to get other stuff done if we are worrying. You might worry instead of sleeping or sitting down to a proper meal, or you might do it instead of focusing on the here and now. Why do we pour so much of our time into it? Surprisingly, worry serves a very important purpose. It allows us to avoid our negative feelings. Worrying keeps us in a more shallow, cognitive, verbal headspace. It's uncomfortable but feels better than other. In other words, worry is the rock that goes skipping over the surface of lake catastrophe rather than sinking into the depths. Therefore, rather than feel good or be blindsided with uncomfortable negative emotion when the other shoe drops, warriors can stay in a prepared state of a low-level distress. It is protective in a sense even if it is uncomfortable. With that, how can we stop worrying? Here are 3 tools of wearing power. First, I'll give you a can opener, next I'll give you a cordless drill, and we'll end with a big old chainsaw. Tip number 1. Pick a time to worry. Even though this is the least intensive of the 3 tips, this tool is no slouch. Worry is like a goldfish that grows as big as the tank you put it in. Therefore, by limiting the amount of time you allow yourself to worry, worries stay small rather than taking up your whole day. So set aside a specific 30 minutes chunk, maybe right after lunch or the 3 o'clock slump or right after dinner, and designate it as your worry time. The only time to avoid is right before bed for obvious reasons. Then, when worries bubble up outside of your designated time, ask yourself, can I do something about this right now? For instance, if you start to worry that you forgot to pay your credit card bill, take action and pay it. If you just fought with your partner and you are worried you hurt their feelings, take action and apologize. But if you start to worry that you will die alone, or that your kid could be in a school shooting, or that you're going to end up with some disease, there's nothing to do at the moment. So punt it, kick it to your worry time. Chances are when worry time rolls around, you will have forgotten about whatever was making you uneasy, or at the very least, the thought will have lost its urgency. Think of it as the best kind of procrastination because the task usually disappears. Tip number 2. Experiment with acting confident and decisive. We all have that friend who goes through life taking things in stride. They take the good with the bad, roll with the punches, and bend without breaking. Now that friend may have some of their own problems. They miss out because they didn't plan ahead. Their spontaneity can sometimes tip over into impulsivity, and people get mad because they completely space out on the follow-through. But anxiety isn't one of their problems. So when you are sick of feeling anxious, you have sunk 8 hours into researching which coffee makers to buy. You won't let yourself hit send on that job application even though you have checked it for typos 10 times. Or you are worried your partner is dead because you haven't heard from them for 3 hours. Ask yourself what that friend would do, and then do what your non-anxious friend would do. It will feel wrong at first, but here's the benefit. Experimenting with non-anxious behavior forces you to try on a more flexible way of thinking and acting. And once you have road tested researching coffee makers for 10 minutes, checking your job application twice, and texting your partner only after you haven't heard from them all day, you realize your worry wasn't keeping you safe after all. You were safe all along. Tip number 3. Focus squarely on the very worst that could happen. Here's the chainsaw I promised you. This tool is not for the faint of heart, but it gets the job done. Time to go deep. The picture is worth 1,000 words, right? Therefore, to break yourself out of the shallow, actually imagine the worst case scenario. Picture whatever you fear vividly in great detail as if it were the worst scene in your personal horror movie. Go big. If you are worried, you will end up alone. Picture yourself alone in a creepy apartment with no one to hang out with. If you are worried you will end up a failure, picture yourself living under a bridge. If you are worried about health or safety, don't picture with actual car accident or the moment you are diagnosed with cancer. Instead, picture the worst case scenario of the grief and loss that follow. You know you have found the right image if you well up just thinking about it. Once you have found it, picture it in your mind's eye as vividly as possible. Sit it with the big yucky emotions it brings up for 5 minutes. Set a timer so you are not tempted to throw in the towel. Then do it again and again the next day. Rinse and repeat. Do it until it gets boring, because it will. As horrifying as this exercise is at the outset, after all, who wants to picture themselves sad, alone, filled with regret, grieving, or having failed? Only the first couple times really sear your soul. After that, one of two things will happen. Either your brain will realize the total train wreck you have imagined in your brain would never actually happen, you would take action before things actually got that far, or your brain will get bored with the repetition that never comes to fruition. In summary, with these 3 techniques, some practice, and perhaps some guidance from a mental health professional, you can get pretty darn close to don't worry, be happy.